Okay, Chris Speaks back here today with Brandon Mosley for the BCS and the State of Alabama podcast. And I think we're going to touch on something maybe not political, but the Otis French shooting is that his name, Brandon?
Yes, Otis French Jr. was a resident of Bay Minette in Baldwin County. In 2023, unfortunately for Otis, his turn indicator light went out and he apparently was unaware of it. So he turned in front of a police officer, not knowing that the turn indicator light wasn't working. So he got pulled over for that. The officer was going to write a warning ticket. And in that process, he asked Otis to step out of the car. Otis had a bulge in his pocket. The police officer thought that was a weapon. And so Sonny started trying to pat down Otis, and he objected to that. And then the officer proceeded to continue to attempt to pat him down and attempted to handcuff him. Otis fought out of that and then ran away. And unfortunately, the officer was able to cut him off, and the two collided and went to the ground. Then the officer tased Otis, and then Otis tried to get the taser. When he did, the officer pulled his sidearm and shot Otis 5 times in the chest. Unfortunately, that was the end of Otis. Um, the family is suing in federal court. Um, the police made some mistakes in how they stored this video. So somebody was able to get went to the court documents and saw where the passwords to the video, which was stored online, were in the court document. So then they used that to open it up and put the shooting of Otis French on YouTube. And so we have it at the Alabama Gazette. Um, a lot of people are talking about the shooting. Both men appear to overreact to a point. And so a simple traffic stop escalated into a man dying.
I've watched the video. I'm sure you've watched it several times too. I think that the officer was probably justified in his shooting, but at the same time, I look at it, I'm like, this is all because of you. Had you just handed him that warning ticket, this would have never went that far.
Yeah, the officer made a few what I think are mistakes. The first of all was asking Otis to step out of the car. He probably should have just handed him the ticket and let him drive away, and everybody'd be happy and still alive today. The second was suddenly, asked Otis to step out of the car to suddenly try to pat him down because he had a bulge in his pocket. If Otis had a gun in his pocket, that is perfectly legal in Alabama. If you pull me over, I probably have a handgun in my pocket.
Oh, me too.
Because Alabama, of course, I have a concealed carry permit, but Alabama doesn't even require concealed carry permits. It's completely legal for any and every Alabamian, unless they've lost their gun rights due to a felony conviction or domestic violence, to have a handgun, in an ankle holster, in a pocket, um, in a holster, in a purse. Pretty much, this is Alabama. We like guns. We have guns. We don't expect for the son to be grabbed because the officer is afraid that we have a gun. If we're not touching the gun and we're not reaching for the gun, that he had a bulge in his pocket didn't in no way should have escalated to that. You kind of wish that once Otis got loose and ran away, that the officer didn't pursue. It's like you have his vehicle. It's Otis French Jr. You know he's scared of the police. Um, he's going to be wind up at his house or his dad's house. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And then you can charge him with, fleeing the scene or, resisting arrest, though this wasn't beginning his arrest. And then Otis should have just agreed to the pat down. I mean, refusing the pat down, and I probably would have got mad when all of a sudden the officer tried to, push me up against my car and then pat me down. It's like, okay, I didn't do anything. Why am I being punished? But I mean, if you obey the officer's command, if Otis obeys the officer's command, he probably has to divulge whatever bulge is in his pocket. Apparently, it wasn't a weapon, or that would have come out. And he'd be alive today. But Otis overreacts when the police officer tries to cuff him. He should have agreed to being cuffed. He didn't. Then he ran away, which he shouldn't have done. And then when he saw the police officer cut him off, he shouldn't have run over the police officer. And then when he got tased, he should have just, hey, okay, I got tased and I'm going back to the station. But no, he fights and gets hold of the taser. And then I mean, I don't want to blame poor Otis for his death, but he had some sort of panic attack there and acted irrationally, and it contributed to an escalation that ultimately ended up with the officer killing poor Otis. And I mean, you look at the tape over and over again, it's like, I don't see a crime here. Now we'll find out from a federal judge whether Otis's civil rights were violated, but I mean, even
You
if
don't think there's any question his civil rights were violated when he wanted to pat. I mean, you're going by the law and him having a right to carry that weapon. And I mean, what reason was he patting him down?
um, I think in Alabama you have a right to have a bulge or to have a pistol in your pocket. Um, I don't think Otis has the right to refuse the pat down.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I don't think he has a right to refuse a pat down if they say they're doing that. I mean,
I mean,
at that point,
if we're all going to get patted down every time we get pulled over by the police because we're speeding or because an indicator light went out, that's going to get a lot more difficult. But I mean, the police can do that. I had a friend who got pulled over because an officer thought she was driving erratically, and she had to do the full pat down. And they do you have drugs in the vehicle and all this kind of stuff. Um, she submitted the pat down.